The following is a paid advertisement. The views expressed are the sole responsibility of the advertiser.
Put the power back in your hands. This is Behind the Law with attorney Justin Clark.
Welcome to Behind the Law and happy weekend to you. We have a great show lined up today, but first, allow me to introduce you to my beautiful co-host, Michaela Nichols, as always. Hello, Michaela, how are you?
I'm great.
You are the voice of the people at home. You're a non-lawyer, I'm a lawyer. You ask the questions that the people at home are thinking.
Yeah, that's my job.
And you're gonna ask a lot of questions today. How is that?
I hope, if you let me.
And you might even have some other questions. I will leave the phone number on the screen during the entire show, 321-282-1055. Here's what's coming up today. Trust and avoiding probate. Let me tell you something, that's very important. You don't want to see your family fighting when something bad happens to you. And then our good buddy Michael Mills will be here to talk about brain injuries, traumatic brain injuries in a personal injury case that happens all of the time. And you might want a second opinion. You might have a lawyer now, but you want a second opinion. Great stuff is just ahead. Michaela, are you ready?
I am.
Here's what we're gonna do. Very short break. When we return, Behind the Law continues. Does credit card debt have you spinning out of control? You are not helpless. At Attorneys Justin Clark and Associates, our goal is to lower or even eliminate your credit card debt. Call me today or visit youhavepower.com and take back control of your financial life. Welcome back to the show. And you see a lot of personal injury attorneys out there advertising on television, and sometimes they get a bad rap. You call them ambulance chasers, and it's a little confusing to me because I see what great work injury attorneys do. I see the families of people who have been injured and are really desperate at that time in their lives. They can't work. Choosing a good attorney might be the most important part of that journey to your recovery. And I wanted to talk to our good friend Michael Mills about just that. Michael, welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
I think that when someone gets injured in an accident, especially when it's a bad accident, we have really bad injuries.
Right.
Their choice and their attorney can sometimes make all the difference in the case. What should we be looking for when it's time to choose an attorney for our injury?
Well, there's a few things that you need to be mindful of. First, you want to make sure that you have an attorney that has experience, and in so doing, you also want to make sure that they have hopefully a network of different medical providers that they can help you find, because when it comes down to it, being able to first get better after being injured and having the documentations that us as attorneys need to be able to aggressively litigate your case on the client's behalf is super, super important. You know, of course we're going to take care of the client, but we can't do so without the help from having the necessary medical records, the necessary economic records to be able to aggressively litigate that case.
Exactly right. And I bet there are some people at home watching right now who have hired an attorney and they're down the road a little bit with them and they can't get a call back. No one's responding to their questions. They don't know what's going on with their case. And we have a lot of great attorneys here in Central Florida, but like any other profession, there are some people who are either not great or maybe they're overwhelmed. Maybe they are just too busy. Once I hire an attorney to handle my case, am I locked in with them forever, or do I have some options for second opinions?
You're absolutely not locked in forever. What you want to do is, we often get situations where folks will call me and they're not happy with their attorney that they have at the time, and I ask them to just give me some information about their case. How long has it been? How long has the case been ongoing? And if they're like, oh, it's been 2 weeks and he hasn't done anything yet, or she hasn't done anything yet, and it's taken too long, I have to slow them down and let them know this is a process that you're going to have to go through. It's not something that you're going to get wrapped up in 2 weeks. 2 weeks after a client gets signed up, we're still doing all the preliminary work that's necessary to get the case set up.
Right.
So 2 weeks it really isn't a long time. So I kind of have to explain that to them. Secondly, it's important that you have an open line of communication with your attorney, with with his staff, so that if you have questions, and inevitably that's going to happen, especially if it's the first time you've been in this type of accident, you're going to have a lot of questions. So you're going to want to have an attorney that has an open line of communication. You can call them up, obviously during normal business hours,
yeah,
preferably. But you know, being able to call and either speak with the attorney or speak with a knowledgeable staff that can inform you on any of the questions that you may have, that's also important, because it puts your mind at rest.
Absolutely. And you know, Michael Mills is our official personal injury attorney on this program for a variety of different reasons. But learn for yourself. Call him right now, 321-282-1055. Whether you've just been injured in an accident or you're not happy with what's been going on with your current attorney, he'd be happy to talk to you. But I've seen it happen before. Some people have called and said, I'm not happy with my lawyer. And he says, you know what? That lawyer's kind of doing everything right. Stick with them. He's not in the business of stealing cases. Absolutely. It's just, we do want to make sure that your case is handled properly. 321-282-1055. You can call him right now. And Michael, though, one of the greatest parts of what you do for people, because that medical treatment, and at the end of the day, we really want people to get better. You know, Absolutely. It's not really about money after all. It's about getting them better. And the Injury Assistance Network, which you've created, it gives me all the confidence in the world that you're going to take care of them. Absolutely. Describe what I call IAN.
Yes, Ian, Injury Assistance Network, right? It helps us as attorneys and the general public to find kind of like a provider near them that is kind of, you know, attorney vetted,
right?
You know, attorney approved, so that you know that you're going to get that necessary treatment that you need, and your attorney, whoever that attorney may be, will get all the documentation and records that they need to aggressively litigate your case. You mentioned about TBI, or traumatic brain injuries. That's one of the things that is very prevalent, and you don't have to be in a super bad accident to suffer from a traumatic brain injury. Sometimes it happens when the airbag deploys and you get hit in the head. There's certain, and I'm not a doctor, but there are certain things that you have to, symptoms that you have to look at and be aware of, even as the attorney, to make sure that your client gets the treatment that they need to, one, help them get better, but secondly, also add that value to the case.
Right.
Because you don't want them to go untreated and you settle a case for something less than the case is worth, if that symptom or that diagnosis had been made aware of.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to have a lumbar strain, another thing to have a traumatic brain injury.
Absolutely.
What are some of the symptoms that you've seen in people who probably didn't even have that bad of an accident, but it turns out they have an issue with their brain, pretty important part of our body? What are some of the symptoms you've seen? Well,
you're looking for concussive symptoms. So if they're having headaches, blurred vision, if they have a sudden change in mood, and like all of a sudden they're getting angrier than they used to for no real good reason, those are things that you definitely want to be aware of. And as a client, you want to make mention of that to both your doctor and to your attorney,
right?
Because you know those things can go overlooked if we're not aware of it. And if we are made aware of it, there are places that you can be sent to, either neurologists, so that they can take the necessary steps and give you the necessary tests to determine whether or not you have a TBI or not.
Got it. And I guess that does, though, at times affect the value of the case for the positive for the client.
Absolutely, because it's your brain after all. So injury or traumatic brain injury is going to definitely be more valuable than if it's just whiplash or sprain strain. So those are things that we want to be made aware of early in the case. So one, you can get the treatment that you need, and two, we can incorporate that in the demand to the adjuster so that we can get the most for you as our client.
Yeah, I don't think people understand that if you have been injured in an accident, what a real commitment it is to getting better. We're talking about uprooting your life, uprooting your family's life, because especially those first few months, Michael. We're talking 2, 3, 4 times a week you have to go seek medical care, sometimes maybe in a different part of town. It's not easy recovering from an automobile accident, is it?
No, it's not. And I'm glad you brought that up, because that was one of the reasons I did create the Injury Assistance Network, is to make it easier to find those conveniently located attorney-vetted providers, so that those 2, 3 times or 3, 4 times a week, they're not as bad. Of course, it's still taking time away from you, from what you'd ordinarily be doing, but it makes it less convenient.
How quickly do I really need to get into see a medical provider after I first have that accident?
I say the sooner the better, especially if you're feeling those symptoms immediately. Don't wait. A lot of folks wait, and they wait to see if the pain will go away, if their headaches are going to go away. They're taking over-the-counter medication. But that time, first of all, with Florida statute, the PIP statute, you have 14 days in which to treat or go see a doctor in order for your PIP coverage, which is through your auto insurance, to actually pay and cover your medical bills. But aside from that, you want to make sure that you get evaluated as quickly as possible, not just for the PIP purposes, but for your own peace of mind. Make sure that you're doing okay and you're on the track to getting better.
And lastly today, and I think people can be a little judgmental at times when you file a personal injury claim, because let's say that I get hit from behind. It's some nice old lady. She didn't know what was going on, just hit me from the rear.
Right.
And I'm injured, so I'm going to file a claim. I'm going to pursue that claim. They're like, oh, how dare you sue this poor little old lady, Justin? What a prick you are.
No. It's
really not suing her at the end of the day, is it?
No, it really isn't. You are filing a claim against her insurance. And after all, that's why we have insurance.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Right.
We have insurance so that when the unforeseen happens, we have somebody there, or something, a company there that can compensate you for your injuries, that can pay the bills that occurred as a result of those injuries in this accident. So that's why it's there. I know a lot of folks will say, well, I don't want my insurance rate to go up. I don't want their insurance rate to go up. But if you're paying a premium anyway, and then the thing that you're paying the premium for occurs, what sense does it make not to use what you're already paying for?
Exactly. As always, Michael Mills, fantastic information today. Thank you for joining me.
My pleasure.
Talk to you soon. Have a great weekend. Here's what we'll do. Very quick timeout. When we return, you don't want to go through probate. How do you avoid it? As Behind the Law continues. Does student loan debt have you spinning out of control? You are not helpless. At Attorneys Justin Clark & Associates, our goal is to lower or even eliminate your monthly payments. Call me today or visit youhavepower.com and take back control of your financial life. You always hear all this talk about how going solar will lower your electricity bill, but your windows might be more important than solar. You have old windows, your electricity bill is going to skyrocket. When you replace the windows, guess what? It comes way down. There's one place to call when it comes to new windows, and as Renewal by Anderson. Dan Brigman is here. Dan, always a pleasure. You're family to us. But at Renewal by Anderson, you treat your customers like family as well.
We really do, and it's really all about, we're just passionate, Justin, about improving the place that homeowners like yourself and our listeners live. Yeah. And it's important to us, and it's our #1 motto.
How do I know, though, it's time to call you to see about replacing my windows?
Well, that's a great question. I've always said we don't wake up every morning and do a window inspection, right? We're usually getting ready and getting the kids off to work, but really you got to look for key things. You got to look for windows that are leaking. You've got to look for air infiltration, that you can feel things coming around. You got to look for seal failure. That's when, and I'm not talking about decorations for Christmas. I'm talking about the foggy, right? And so, and you got single pane, and of course the big one, high energy bills.
It's huge. It makes a big difference. And when you think about no down payment, no payments for sometimes 18 months, low interest rates, there are times where getting new windows can actually be free when you compare it to the cost that you're saving on your electricity bill.
Almost more times than not.
Yeah.
And it's really like this. I mean, if you take the whole house and you take every window and line it up, That's a wall and a half of pure glass all around your house. So think about it. You got bad windows or a single pane, you're paying your energy company to heat the outside of your house. And you're right. By the time you do the investment in our promotions, they pay for themselves in 10 to 15 years' time.
Dan, always a pleasure to see you, buddy. Keep up the great work and do yourself a favor. Call Renewal by Anderson today. Free consultation. You won't regret it. Do IRS threats have you spinning out of control? You are not helpless. At Attorneys Justin Clark and Associates, our goal is to lower or even eliminate your IRS debt. Call me today or visit youhavepower.com and take back control of your financial life. Welcome back to the show. I get asked by you all the time, Justin, what should I do? Should I create a trust? Should I do a will? I want to be prepared for if something, heaven forbid, happens to me. I don't want my family fighting over all of my assets. And that's a very good question, an important question. But the answers are not necessarily one. You can't just put one answer on all of this, okay? They're all different questions. I don't know anyone better to ask these questions to than our good buddy attorney Scott Farnsworth. Scott, welcome to the show. First time here. How are you today?
Great. Good to be here.
And you know, everyone loves their family, but then when mom or dad pass away, it seems like a brother or sister inevitably are going to fight over that money. They are, but there are ways to avoid that happening. What should we do? How do we get prepared for that unfortunate time that is death?
Well, I'd say the number one thing you should think about is how and why to avoid probate. The why is because it takes so long, because you're sort of hamstrung for 6 to 12 months. That's when problems start within the family.
Right.
What I've seen is during that wait, while the legal machinery is churning, people start remembering old hurts, you know, the old mama always loved you better stuff. And that's when they start fighting.
At what age should I start thinking about creating a will for myself?
Well, to me, the people who need the will the most are those who have young children.
Okay.
Because the big issue for them is who's going to raise that child. It's not so much about the money. That's important. But what's more important, who will raise the child? And so the minute you have a child, you should have a will, because that's where you appoint your guardian for that person.
Yeah, I think a lot of people get confused between a will and a trust, and they're two completely separate things.
Correct.
What are the differences in a will versus a trust, and who needs a will versus who needs a trust?
Well, bottom line is that wills go to probate. I have a lot of people who come to see me. The number one misconception they have when they come in, I want a will so I can avoid probate. And I have to say, time out, time out. Repeat after me, wills go to probate. So a will designate who's going to raise the children. That's a court question. But in terms of the distribution of your assets, you probably don't want to rely on a will. The idea of a trust is you create a separate entity that has the power to own your assets. You control it, you define its terms, you are fully in charge as long as you're alive and you still have your marbles. But when you don't, then somebody that you trust is appointed to take over the management. Now, they don't get to do whatever they want to do. They have a strict set of guidelines and instructions that they have to follow. But because the assets are owned by the trust and not by you, that's the way you avoid probate. Now, there are other ways to avoid probate besides using a trust. That's something that I can talk about with
I'd
my
love
clients.
to hear it.
And so the reason we have probate is this. Somebody died and they have an asset that is titled in their name without instructions of where it goes. Probate originally was very simple. Transfer title from dead person to living people. But somewhere along the road, somebody figured out we got to make sure all the creditors get paid. We got to make sure the lawyer gets paid. We got to make sure the funeral home operator gets paid. And now we have this long, complicated process. So how do you avoid probate? You die owning nothing. Now, that doesn't sound very fun if you have this image of sleeping under a bridge and you're homeless. No, the secret is you own things, but they're owned inside the trust, or they are owned so that they flow automatically to the people you want to have them. The number one thing that will kick you into probate is a piece of property, a house or a piece of land. Because in Florida, unless you've done some pre-planning, there's really no way to avoid probate if you die owning a piece of real estate. Now, perhaps you have instructions in the will, but that's going to go through probate. So better, we want instructions in a deed. If you're married, Typically, as a married couple in Florida, the ownership goes to the survivor. That's a half step measure. The problem is you could both die together.
Sure.
Now you're in probate, okay? So the issue is, how do you set up your assets so they flow to the people you want to have them without needing the judge to get involved? That's what planning, in my opinion, is all about. I was once doing a lot of probates when I first set up Will and Trust Express, and what I found is my regular clients were very happy with the way we worked, but my probate clients were all grumpy. And I had an epiphany at that moment. I said, the quality of one's life is largely dependent on the nature of the people you hang around with.
Very true.
So why would I want to hang around with grumpy people when I could hang around happy people? So we just cut off the probates right like that. Now, it took us a year to work through all the ones that were in the pipeline, because that's how long they take. I tell you, when we closed the last one, that was a big, happy day for me.
Did your happiness improve, really?
Absolutely.
Really?
I work with very nice people. The folks I'm looking for have some money, but they're not wealthy. They're probably never going to go to a big downtown law firm.
Yep.
And so now they're left with doing something online, which is itself a very dangerous proposition.
Sure is.
Or coming to somebody who's easy to talk to, accessible. We have our fee schedule right up front. No surprises at our office. That's one of the secrets. People are intimidated by the prospect of going to see a lawyer. And if we can eliminate that intimidation, now they're going to take action. They need to take action, because if they don't, there's going to be a mess when they die.
Yeah, and if you have a family and you think about, you don't want to put them through probate, all you have to do is call Scott right now, 321-282-1055. You will not be disappointed, I assure you that. How does it work, Scott? When I first make that call to you, do I have to pay you a fee to come in? How is that process?
You get a free hour of my time.
Free hour?
To talk about whatever you want to talk about. I only do in-person meetings. I don't like Zoom. I like to look you in the eyes and see what you're up to. And that way we can figure out what's the best thing for you. So in the course of an hour, I can explain all the different tools we use. I can get to know who you are, who your family is, what you want to accomplish. And so that is for me, a fun and fair way. I get to hear your story. I'm big in understanding about who people are and where they came from, how they got here to this place in their life. And so with that free hour, we'll figure out what you want. Our fees are right there. It's all flat fee. You don't have to worry if you're wasting 15 minutes of my time, because it's my time, not your time.
I love it. Describe the mental relief that your clients feel from when they first walk into your office, not knowing what probate is or a trust or a will, to leaving there knowing that their family is protected forever in case something happens to them. How do they feel?
The one-word answer is they feel relief. But the thing I most want to send them out the door with is a clear understanding of what they've done. There are a lot of attorneys who can create great documents, sign here, this is the power of attorney, sign here. I don't work that way. When we figure out what to do, then you come back and we review and sign. I will talk about every single thing that's in your documents. You'll know what you're doing. And so it's that knowing relief. Not just, I hope I have the right answer here in this book, but yes, you know what you're doing and it's the right answer for you.
Where should I keep my will in my house?
In some place fireproof.
Yeah. Don't
put it in a safety deposit box, because if all the signers on the box are dead, then it's like an act of Congress to get to the will. Now, one of the things that you have to think about, so a partial solution is designating beneficiaries for your 401k or whatever you have. But most people don't think that, oh, these people are just as mortal as I am. There's every likelihood that they could die or lose their marbles before I do or when I do, and now we're into a much bigger mess.
Yep.
So designating beneficiaries is one possible solution, but unfortunately it's a half-baked solution because we're not thinking beyond the next step. One of the things that I enjoy most about my work is I have to keep asking what if. What if this person is not there? What if that person dies before I do? What if they're still young? What if they've had a brain injury like we heard from the last speaker? wow, we've got to make plans for that too. We can't just say, okay, you're on my 401k, so everything's clear. That doesn't work.
Excellent job. Scott, what a pleasure it was to meet you in person. We got to do this again soon. I got so many more questions.
Okay.
Here's what we're going to do. Very quick break. We'll be right back to wrap it up with What Did We Learn? Does student loan debt have you spinning out of control? You are not helpless. At Attorneys Justin Clark and Associates, our goal is to lower or even eliminate your monthly payments. Call me today or visit youhavepower.com and take back control of your financial life. We have had not one hurricane, but 2 hurricanes over the last month and a week. You have roof problems. At the end of the day, you've seen some leaking in your roof, and it makes you very scared as a homeowner. This is your most valuable asset. What do you do? I'll tell you what to do. You call Universal Roof and Contracting. Our good buddies are here. I called you Nick the first time, and we still make fun of me for it. Corey is here.
I'm Corey.
And Justin, who I
Good to meet you.
Yeah.
Forget that one, yeah.
Universal Roof and Contracting. Look, we have a lot of people coming down here right now. I call them hurricane or storm chasers.
Right.
They are not trustworthy when it comes to doing your roof. Universal's been around for a long time, veteran owned. Why do I trust Universal?
Well, just that. I mean, 30 years. We're veteran owned, family owned. We are right here, just a couple of miles down the road. Also, Jacksonville and over on the West Coast as well. And we're just serving the community. And we're licensed, we're insured, we're platinum certified contractors with Owens Corning, and we will give you an honest assessment of what's going on. If you have damage, if you don't have damage, if you've got life left on the roof, or if you need a new roof, we'll help you get taken care of.
Yeah, when I think Universal, I think family, I think veteran owned. You gave a veteran a roof the other day.
Yeah, it's an awesome project we're involved in every single year at this time. We build it up several months in advance, and on Veterans Day we do a live show, and we get to announce that winner and donate an entire roofing system free of charge to that veteran in need. So it's a wonderful project. We just got done wrapping that up.
How do I know it's time to call?
Well, I mean, right now, because of the storm, it's important to just get your roof inspected. You don't know what's going on. Obviously, if you're seeing brown spots in the ceiling, if you're seeing shingles in the yard, if you're looking across the street and seeing your neighbor's yard or your neighbor's roof that's damaged, there's a good chance yours has got some problems as well. So we'll come out and do a free inspection, no cost to you.
I'm sure you guys have plenty of to-do right now. A lot of calls coming in, but you're going to be there in one day. Corey, Justin, always a pleasure to see you.
Always.
If you've noticed anything after the storm with your roof, call Universal Roof and Contracting today, the only place we call when it comes to roofing. Do IRS threats have you spinning out of control? You are not helpless. At Attorneys Justin Clark and Associates, our goal is to lower or even eliminate your IRS debt. Call me today or visit youhavepower.com and take back control of your financial life. And as always, we wrap up the show with What Did We Learn? Michaela, what did you learn today?
Well, I learned that I was especially quiet this episode because I was literally taking in everything.
Wow. Well said.
If you get in an accident like you were talking about hitting, the old lady hits you, you're not suing her, you're suing the insurance company. I thought that was huge.
Very true. And traumatic brain injuries, it sounds horrible, like you're going to know it when you see it, but sometimes you don't really know there's something that bad going on and your brain is injured. So you got to really be careful about that. Also, wills, trust, I think are so important to avoid probate and not have your family, when you die, fight over your money. And it's so easy. And Scott will see people for an hour right there for free. No fee consultation.
Too.
I do too.
That's
excellent job, Michaela Nicholas, as always. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a wonderful weekend. More Behind the Law right here next week. I'm attorney Justin Clark. Call me now for a free consultation or visit youhavepower.com and take back control of your life.
The proceeding was a paid advertisement. The views expressed were the sole responsibility of the advertiser.